All right, joining us now from Capitol Hill, Republican Congressman from Virginia and the House Majority Leader, Representative Eric Cantor, back on the show. Good to have you as well.
Mickey, good morning.
Hey, Eric, so it looks like we're going to have a CR. Do you think this could be like 95 and 96 where you'd have the budget battles that would just continue to be one CR after another, or do you suspect soon there's going to be a showdown?
Well, you know, if you listen to what the White House is saying, I did speak to Bill Daley yesterday. He seems to indicate that they don't want to see a shutdown. And, you know, we in the House as Republicans have said all along, we don't want to shut down the government. We just want to cut spending. And you know, today the Senate is going to take up the CR bill at 11 o'clock. So we've averted it. And I think for the first time we've taken a step towards actually doing what the American people are having to do right now, which is tighten their belts and do more with less.
You bring up Bill Daley. There are a lot of insiders that say the White House has changed. Its operations have changed a good bit since Bill Daley started running it. Do you find that it is easier to deal with the White House now with Bill Daley as chief of staff?
I'll tell you one thing, Joe. I've spoken to Bill Daley more than in the last couple of weeks since he's been put into since he was hired by President Obama than I spoke to Rahm Emanuel the several years that he was there. So if that's any indication that the White House is willing to try and work things out and reflect the outcome of last November's election, I think maybe it's a positive sign.
Hey, Eric, let's talk about the other big issue coming up. That's obviously the debt ceiling being increased. There are a lot of conservatives, a lot of people being supported by Tea Party members that are not going to cast that vote to raise the debt ceiling unless there are significant cuts attached. How is that showdown looking?
Well, you know, we really don't know exactly when the date will be that we'll have to act. You know, we're waiting for April 15th and tax revenues to indicate exactly when the date is that the ceiling needs to be raised. But we've said all along, Joe, that, you know, that vote reflects, and the increase in debt limit reflects dollar for dollar the fiscal mismanagement of years gone by. And I think that most Americans believe that we should take some steps to make sure we don't keep spending like that. And that's why we've said cuts first. We've got to demonstrate we are tightening our belt. You know, we'll get to that vote. And I think along with that vote, we're going to see a lot of things put in place, whether they be process reforms as far as the budget is concerned, spending caps, whether we can demonstrate that we are tightening the belts this fiscal year as we've done this week. Those are all the kinds of things we're going to have to do prior to seeing that vote happen.
John Heilman.
Congressman, I want you to look a little further down the road for me, if you would. I think one of the biggest political and policy questions that is before us is the question of whether or not the Republicans in the House and other members of your party in the Senate will be able to ultimately get together with the White House on a big grand bargain at some point this year or early next year on entitlement reform, tax reform, a big picture package to put the nation's fiscal house in order. What do you think the odds are of that happening at this point?
Well, you know, I don't think we have a choice. I mean, you know, really, you know, we've got an economy that's still ailing, too many people out of work. And so our focus is to try and jumpstart this economy. And what we continue to hear when you talk to small and large businesses is if you want to fix the economy, fix the deficit. If you want to provide the kind of environment where there's going to be growth, long-term economic growth, make sure you get your fiscal house in order. And, you know, we're taking the small steps this week, and we're going to continue to do that for this fiscal year, but everyone knows the uncertainty hanging over the economy is caused by the entitlement future of this country, and we just can't keep going like we're going. That's why Republicans have said when we produce our budget, Chairman Ryan and his committee will produce that budget document towards the end of this month, early next month, and we've said that we are going to include entitlement reform in that budget.
That's big.
Well, I got a question for you. That's a little more partisan, perhaps.
What a surprise, Howard Dean.
You guys are
the governor of Vermont. I know that's going to shock you, Mr. Majority
Leader. These guys
Leader.
are cutting all kinds of things, and yesterday you had a chance to cut $53 billion out of the budget, and you didn't do it. You left the oil companies with $53 billion they don't need because oil is selling at over $100 a barrel. So it's not just cutting the budget, because you passed up a chance to take $53 billion out of our deficit.
Well, listen, I mean, well, you know, I actually had this kind of conversation with the president about, you know, subsidizing certain industries and not doing others. And I said, you know what, time is up. We don't need to be picking winners and losers here in Washington. If we've got a problem or if there are issues of concern around our tax policy, let's engage in tax reform. And Dave Camp, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, has already begun to hold hearings on how we can reform our tax code, again, to create an environment for long-term economic growth. You know, there are two things that we need to do to make sure that America can compete and people get back to work. That is, get the fiscal house in order, cut spending, and to make sure that we provide a tax code and an environment for people to invest their capital here in America to grow. So I do think there are those two tracks we need to head down.
Tom Brokaw.
Congressman, what do you think the chances are that before the end of the year, because the clock is running on an election year coming up, that you'll be able to have some kind of significant movement toward what you just described as entitlement reform, that you'll be able to do something about Medicare and about Social Security and about Plan D in Medicare, the prescription drug benefit that was passed during the Bush administration that's now, what, over $1 trillion that it's adding to the deficit in the eyes of a lot of people. What are the realistic chances of getting something done on those 200,000-pound apiece gorillas that are sitting there in the Capitol?
And Tom, well, you left out Medicaid too, because as you know, that's what's facing states first right now, is they are really facing some fiscal stress, especially after the passage of the health care bill last year, and they don't know how they're going to deal with it, and we can face real potential problems in the states because of the Obamacare bill. But I'll say this, we have said again that come a month from now, you're going to see Republican proposals for how we want to reform entitlements. We've said all along the president missed an opportunity when he unveiled his budget a couple weeks ago by not including those entitlements. So it's going to take both sides to work together. I don't think that you're going to get entitlement reform until both sides are willing to admit we've got a real problem here and we've got to face the facts and be honest with people. You know, we can move to protect today's seniors and those nearing retirement, 55 and older. But for the rest of us, we've got to come to grips with the facts. If we're going to save these programs, they're going to have to change.
You know, Eric, we've been very tough on both parties for not tackling entitlements. That's actually where the game is for the long-term structural debt. So congratulations on, I'm saying this personally for myself, you guys taking it up and challenging the president. I think the president may just meet you halfway. And if so, a lot of our long-term structural debt problems will be taken care of. So thanks for being with us.
Hey, good to be on.
You know, by the way, let's just stop for a second, because we've been harshly critical of the Republican Party for dodging entitlements, for just going after the 12% of the domestic discretionary spending. But this is a significant step forward. Paul Ryan and now Eric Cantor are talking about it. There has been a battle inside the House leadership where there have been some elements that have been saying, we just got here. And Tom, you know this better. You've seen these fights time and time again. You've got the reformers that say, we've got to reform entitlements, it's going to bankrupt us. And then you've got the other leaders saying, we just got here. If we tackle Social Security and Medicare, Nancy Pelosi is going to be Speaker in 2 years. So it's a tough battle, but it looks like right now they're ready to go there.